The psychology of people born in the 90s is split right down the middle. A childhood completely without smartphones, but an adulthood flooded with social media. There's an incredibly strange truth hidden inside people born in the 1990s. You remember a world that just doesn't exist anymore. If you were born between 1990 and 1999, you occupy a space in history that will never, ever be repeated. You're not quite a millennial, and you're definitely not Gen Z. You are the ultimate bridge between two completely incompatible realities: Cartoon Network and YouTube, playing outside and playing online. This split childhood molded adults who are simultaneously nostalgic for absolute simplicity and highly fluent in complexity. Researchers are calling this phenomenon 90s kid syndrome, and it is affecting your mental health in ways you probably don't even recognize. Picture this. It's 1998, and you're 8 years old. Saturday morning means waking up early for one sacred reason: cartoons, Scooby-Doo, Rugrats, or DuckTales. You sit cross-legged on the floor in front of the TV. No tablets, no streaming services, no on-demand anything. If you missed a show, you truly missed it. And somehow, that undeniable finality made it matter more. After cartoons, you head outside. Not because your parents forced you, but because that's just what kids did. You played hide and seek until dusk, climbed trees and rode bikes through the neighborhood without helmets or constant supervision. Scraped knees and muddy clothes weren't medical emergencies. They were badges of honor proving you'd actually lived that day. Research shows kids in the 90s spent an average of 3 to 4 hours outside daily. Today, that number has plummeted to less than 30 minutes, with a 2023 WHO study finding that over 80% of adolescents don't meet recommended physical activity levels. You were the last generation that experienced unstructured outdoor play as the default. You didn't need fancy toys. A stick became a sword, and an empty lot became a battlefield. Because you couldn't just Google what to do when you were bored, you developed something incredibly rare: creativity born from emptiness, the sheer ability to generate fun from absolutely nothing. But your life didn't just stop in the analog world. You lived right through the transition. You remember rewinding VHS tapes before returning them to Blockbuster. But you also remember when DVDs felt like absolute magic. You used dial-up internet, where a single web page took 5 agonizing minutes to load. But by the time you hit high school, you had broadband. You typed school papers on actual typewriters in elementary school. But by middle school, you were casually using Word documents. According to researchers, 90s babies experienced a unique blend of traditional education and the very beginning of tech-based learning. You are bilingual in a way no generation before or after will ever be. An analog native, yet digitally fluent. Most importantly, you remember life when people had actual privacy. When you did something impulsive or embarrassing, only the people who were physically there knew about it. No phones filming, no viral videos, and no permanent digital record of your absolute worst moments. You had the ultimate luxury of figuring out who you were in private, a luxury that will never exist again. But then MySpace launched when you were a teenager. Facebook opened to everyone, and Instagram appeared just as you entered adulthood. You were forced to learn how to curate yourself, to perform your life for an invisible audience, and to seek validation through likes and comments. This brutal shift literally split your psychology in half. Researchers noticed that 90s babies experience an unusually intense nostalgia. Neurologically speaking, you witnessed the death of one world and the birth of another. So when you look back, you're not just reminiscing, you're mourning an entire way of life that disappeared. The rosy retrospection bias explains how your brain actively filters out the mundane parts and preserves only the emotional highs. It's not that the 90s were actually perfect, you just remember them that way. Because what you're actually missing isn't the decade,
It's the feeling of being fully present, without constant comparison, living without performing, and existing without documenting. One researcher described 90s kids perfectly. They are the living testimony endorsing the fall of antiquity and the rise of modernity.
And here's the hardest part to talk about. A University of California study analyzing over 27,500 adults found something devastating. People born in the 90s have worse mental health than any previous generation. Depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders are significantly higher among 90s babies compared to those born in the 80s. The root of this pain is a massive cognitive dissonance. You were raised with a set of values where genuine emotions and sentiments controlled us, only to be forced to adapt to a world where devices dominate everything. You developed self-worth through actual accomplishments, then entered a new reality where human value is measured coldly in followers and likes. You are not depressed because you're weak. You are completely exhausted because you're living in two incompatible realities simultaneously. But here's what 90s babies have that other generations don't. Perspective. You know exactly what life was like without constant connectivity. You can bravely put your phone down at dinner, take tech-free vacations, and sleep without checking devices because your body actually remembers what presence feels like. You value true authenticity because you developed your identity long before online audiences ever existed. You deeply understand patience and delayed gratification because you had to wait for songs to download and photos to develop. Researchers say you had a perfectly balanced childhood that straddled the line between the analog and digital worlds. You climbed trees and you coded websites. Today, in your mid-20s to mid-30s, you are contributing to society in profound ways. You act as the ultimate mediators and translators, bridging the massive gap between your boomer parents and your iPad-wielding Gen Alpha kids. You will spend the rest of your life caught in a loop between nostalgia and adaptation. You'll watch younger generations grow up completely digital and feel both envious of their convenience and relieved they'll never know what they're missing. At the same time, you'll hear older generations romanticize the good old days, and you'll know exactly how to hold that truth, knowing it wasn't really that simple. You're not better than other generations. You are simply different. You were shaped by the exact timing of being born right when the old world was ending and the new one was beginning. You belong fully to neither. And maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe that is profound wisdom. You hold both truths without ever needing to pick a side. If you've been carrying this heavy nostalgia and didn't know why, you are not alone. Because at the end of the day, you aren't nostalgic for the 90s. You're nostalgic for the feeling of being fully present. And maybe, just maybe, if you can find the courage to disconnect, you can find that feeling again.